Commander Tavis Merritt never expected to make history on what was supposed to be a routine salvage mission. The derelict Kandarian warship drifting in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter was meant to be a quick job: board, retrieve valuable tech, and return to Earth Station Omega. Humanity, still newcomers to the vast galactic coalition, were relegated to the lowest rungs of interstellar society. Glorified scavengers picking through the remnants of ancient conflicts they hadn't been invited to. Scan indicates no life forms, reported Lieutenant Rylith Opere, her dark eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. But power signatures are unusual, fluctuating in patterns I've never seen before. Tavis adjusted his exosuit's cooling system as their shuttle docked with the alien vessel. Despite 2 decades of contact with 17 different alien species, humans remained technological infants compared to civilizations with millennia of spacefaring history. "Keep comms open," Tavis ordered as the airlock cycled. "If anything moves, we retreat." The Kandarians were supposedly extinct, a highly advanced warrior race that had challenged the Galactic Coalition 5 centuries ago and lost. Their technology was still banned in most sectors, though nobody quite remembered why. The ship's corridors were bathed in an eerie crimson glow, emergency systems still functioning after centuries of abandonment. The architecture felt wrong to human sensibilities, too angular, with walls that curved inward at disturbing angles. "Captain," Rylith's voice cracked through the comm, "I'm detecting an energy spike 3 compartments ahead." Tavis motioned his team forward cautiously. The salvage crew, consisting of specialists Morowa Adebayo and Kelric Voss, followed with scanning equipment, cataloguing potential salvageable items. When they reached the energy source, Tavis froze. In a chamber that could only be described as a shrine stood a pedestal, and upon it a suit of armor unlike anything humanity had encountered. "Is that Kandarian battle armor?" whispered Morowa, her scanner whirring frantically. "The legendary Viridian shell." Coalition records claimed they were all destroyed. The armor was magnificent. Obsidian plates overlapping like scales, trimmed with circuitry that pulsed with emerald light. It stood upright without support, as if awaiting its wearer. "Value estimate exceeds our annual GDP, Kelric muttered. "If we bring this back, Earth's status in the coalition would change overnight." Tavis approached cautiously. Coalition regulations strictly prohibited retrieving military hardware from extinct species, especially Kandarian technology. But humans had always been kept at arm's length by the galactic community, denied access to advanced technology under the guise of cultural development periods. As his gloved hand touched the armor's surface, the emerald lights flared. "Alien." Symbols cascaded across its surface, and a voice, neither male nor female, spoke directly into his mind. "Genetic compatibility detected. Initiating bonding process." "Captain!" Rylith shouted as the armor disassembled itself, plates hovering in the air before slamming toward Tavis. He tried to back away, but it was too late. The armor engulfed him, plates reconfiguring to his human physiology, neural interfaces, piercing his exosuit and connecting directly to his nervous system. Pain exploded through his consciousness as ancient alien technology rewrote portions of his DNA. When the transformation ended, Tavis stood encased in the legendary Kandarian battle armor, technology so advanced it was indistinguishable from magic to human understanding, symbiosis complete, welcome bearer. What they didn't know as they retreated to their shuttle with Tavis still locked inside the responsive armor was that across the galaxy, ancient warning systems were activating. The armor wasn't just a weapon, it was the genetic key to the Kandarians' most guarded secrets, and now a human wore it. The universe had noticed, and it wanted its property back. 3 weeks after bringing the Kandarian armor back to Earth, Station Omega Tavis Merritt struggled to understand what he had become. The armor refused to detach completely. Portions of it had fused with his cellular structure, leaving intricate geometric patterns embedded in his skin that glowed emerald when he experienced strong emotions. The neural interface is unprecedented, Dr. Lysithea Kapoor explained, reviewing holographic scans of his altered physiology. It's not merely connecting to your nervous system, it's evolving it. Tavis flexed his hand, watching as microscopic armor scales rippled beneath his skin. And there's no way to remove it? Not without killing you, Lysithea replied. The symbiosis is complete. Even when the external armor plates retract, the foundation layer remains integrated with your cellular structure. Earth's governing body, the United Terrestrial Alliance, had placed Tavis under what they called protective observation. In reality, he was a prisoner in the station's highest security wing, surrounded by scientists eager to understand their technology now bonded to him. During sleep, Tavis experienced fragments of Kandarian memories, vast battles across star systems, technologies that could reshape planets, and a deep-seated fear of something the alien memories identified only as the Judgment. On the 23rd day of his confinement, the station's alarms blared to life. Unidentified vessels emerging from slipspace, announced the station's AI. Configuration matches no known coalition designs. Tavis felt the armor responding before. He consciously processed the threat. The embedded fragments expanded, covering his body in seconds as displays materialized before his eyes. Tactical information in alien script that somehow he could now understand. Vanguard forces detected. Initiating defense protocols. "What's happening?" demanded Administrator Eleros Vaziri as he burst into the observation lab. Before anyone could respond, the station shuddered violently. Through the viewports they watched as sleek obsidian ships, dozens of them, surrounded the station. Their design echoed the angular, unsettling aesthetic of the derelict they'd salvaged the armor from. "They're sentinels," Tavis heard himself say, drawing on knowledge that wasn't his own. Automated enforcement vessels created by the coalition races to hunt down and destroy Kandarian technology after the war. "But the Kandarians have been extinct for centuries," Lysithea protested. "Not extinct," Tavis corrected, the armor providing information directly to his consciousness. "Contained. And I just set off every alarm system they left behind," the station's communications officer appeared on the internal display. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding we surrender the abomination or they'll destroy the station." Administrator Vaziri looked at Tavis with cold calculation. "Perhaps we should comply." "You don't understand," Tavis replied, his voice overlaid with harmonics generated by the armor. "They're not here to retrieve the armor. They're here to ensure no trace of it, or me, remains. Standard containment protocol is complete atomization of the target area." As if to confirm his words, the lead Sentinel vessel fired a warning shot that vaporized one of the station's defensive satellites. "I need to leave," Tavis stated. "They want me, not the station." "And go where?" Lysithea demanded. "There's nowhere in Coalition space you could hide." The armor displayed navigational data, highlighting a region beyond the Coalition's borders. "There are places even the Sentinels fear to follow. Places where the old powers still hold sway." Administrator Vaziri nodded grimly. "Take Shuttle Bay 4. We'll create a diversion." As Tavis sprinted through the station corridors, the armor's capabilities became increasingly apparent. He moved with impossible speed, the armor enhancing his strength and reflexes beyond human limits. When a bulkhead sealed ahead of him, security protocols automatically locking down escape routes, he simply punched through the reinforced metal as if it were paper. By the time he reached the shuttle bay, the station was under full attack. Through the armor's enhanced senses, He could hear the screams of the dying as Sentinel boarding parties executed anyone who resisted. Humanity had always been expendable to the greater galactic powers. Now they were being slaughtered because one human had dared to wield power reserved for the elite races. As Tavis launched the shuttle, the armor fully interfaced with the craft's systems, overriding safety protocols and reconfiguring the engines for performance beyond their design specifications. "I'll draw them away from Earth," he promised, the burning station receding behind him, "and then I'll find out why they're really so afraid of this armor." The shuttle accelerated toward the edge of the solar system as dozens of Sentinel vessels broke formation to pursue him, their priority target. The shuttle wasn't meant for interstellar travel, but the Kandarian armor had transformed it into something else entirely. Metallic tendrils had spread throughout the craft's systems, reconfiguring its propulsion and life support capabilities. After 3 days of relentless pursuit, Tavis had managed to lose the Sentinel vessels in the dense radiation clouds of the Nixian Nebula. Drifting in the shadow of an ice moon, orbiting a gas giant, Tavis finally had time to explore the armor's capabilities. When he closed his eyes and focused, he could access what appeared to be an archival system, memories and knowledge preserved within the armor itself. "Show me why they fear you," he whispered. The armor's response was immediate and overwhelming. His consciousness was flooded with images and sensations from the final days of the Kandarian civilization. They hadn't been the monsters Coalition history portrayed them as. They had been scientists and explorers who had discovered something the ruling Council of Seven wanted kept hidden: the true origin of the galactic civilizations. The progenitors did not leave. They merely changed form. The revelation shook Tavis to his core. According to these memories, the ancient race believed to have seeded the galaxy with life had never departed as official history claimed. They had evolved into energy beings and continued to manipulate galactic civilization from within, maintaining positions of power across multiple species. The Council of Seven, the oldest and most revered races in the Coalition, were actually controlled by these entities. The Kandarians had developed technology to detect and expose these progenitors. The armor Tavis now wore was the culmination of their work, a weapon capable of forcing the energy beings back into physical form. The war had never been about territorial disputes, as Coalition records claimed. It had been an attempt to silence the truth. "Why bond with me?" Tavis asked. "Why a human? Genetic adaptability. Resistance to psychic infiltration. Human neural architecture uniquely suited to interface." The armor's explanations were clinically precise. Humans, as latecomers to galactic civilization, were the only species whose neural patterns hadn't been subtly modified over generations to make them susceptible to progenitor influence. The very qualities that made humans considered primitive by Coalition standards, their unpredictability, their emotional variance, made them perfect hosts for the armor. A proximity alert jolted Tavis from his communion with the armor's archives. A vessel had entered the system, massive and ancient, its design predating Coalition standardization. "Identify," Tavis commanded the shuttle's enhanced sensors. "Kandarian Arc Vessel, Eternal Vigilance. Status: dormant until activated by Viridian shell signature." The massive ship approached slowly, engulfing the shuttle in a tractor beam. As Tavis was drawn into a cavernous docking bay, he realized he wasn't looking at just another warship. This was a preservation vessel, one of the legendary arcs the Kandarians had reportedly launched before their final defeat. When the shuttle's hatch opened, Tavis found himself facing rows of stasis pods stretching into the distance. Each contained a Kandarian warrior in suspended animation, waiting for the signal that their ultimate weapon, the armor Tavis now wore, had found a compatible host. A holographic figure materialized before him, a Kandarian female, her scaled skin iridescent in the dim light. "I am Nixis Vale, last speaker of the Kandarian truth," the hologram stated. "If you are receiving this message, then the Viridian shell has successfully bonded with a host capable of completing our mission." Tavis felt the weight of history bearing down on him. The armor had chosen him to restart a war that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization 5 centuries ago. "I never agreed to this," he protested. The hologram continued impassively. "The choice has already been made. The armor would not have bonded with you if you were not worthy. Now you must decide, will you hide from the truth as the rest of the galaxy has, or will you help us expose the entities that have enslaved all sentient life?" As the stasis pods began the revival process, Tavis realized he stood at the crossroads of galactic history. Humanity had always wondered why they were treated as second-class citizens in cosmic society. Now he knew the answer and had the power to change everything. The Galactic Coalition's central hub, a massive artificial construct orbiting the neutral star Alderath Prime, had never before witnessed the arrival of a Kandarian vessel. As the eternal vigilance dropped out of slipspace, panic erupted across all communication channels. "This is Ambassador Corvus Thel of the Coalition Security Council," came the transmission. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down immediately or face obliteration." Standing on the command deck, Tavis felt strangely calm. Beside him stood Arxis Malavai, the revived Kandarian commander whose warriors now prepared for what could be their final battle. Behind them, a contingent of 100 elite Kandarian soldiers waited silently, their expectations weighing heavily on the human who wore their people's most sacred creation. "Open channel," Tavis commanded. The armor amplified his voice, giving it resonance that carried authority beyond his years. "This is Commander Tavis Merit of Earth, bonded with the Viridian shell. We come under the ancient rite of revelation. The Council of Seven must face the truth." The response was immediate. A fleet of coalition enforcement vessels emerged from slipspace, weapons charged. "The human speaks blasphemy," declared a new voice. Unmistakably that of High Arbiter Zelthros, oldest of the Jexti race and head of the Council. "The Kandarians were judged and found wanting. Their lies died with them. You will surrender the stolen technology immediately." Arxis growled, her scaled skin flushing crimson with anger. "Your fear betrays you, progenitor puppet. You destroyed our worlds to silence us. Will you now destroy the Coalition's own heart to keep your secret?" The Coalition fleet opened fire. The Kandarian vessel's shields, technology thought lost to time, absorbed the barrage without strain. Tavis closed his eyes, interfacing deeper with the armor than ever before. "Show them what we know." The Viridian shell responded, channeling energy through his body and projecting a massive holographic display visible to all ships in the system. It showed historical records, unaltered and devastating, of the progenitors, transformation and ongoing manipulation of galactic affairs. For centuries, 7 energy beings have guided your civilizations, not as benevolent overseers, but as farmers directing livestock, Tavis announced. "They feed on your collective consciousnesses, harvest your technological achievements, and ensure no species ever truly determines its own destiny." On the Coalition hub, chaos erupted. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched in horror as classified documents and suppressed historical accounts verified the Kandarian claims. "This changes nothing," Zelthros declared, though his voice now trembled slightly. "The progenitors guided us to greatness. Without them, we would be primitives scattered across barren worlds." "They imprisoned you in comfortable cages," Tavis countered, "and destroyed any who discovered the truth, including Earth Station Omega and the thousands of innocent humans aboard." The mention of the station's destruction rippled through the coalition representatives. Many had dismissed the reports as exaggeration. Now they saw the Sentinel vessels systematically vaporizing the station despite its surrender. Arxus stepped forward. "We do not seek vengeance for our fallen civilization. We seek freedom for all, sentient beings to determine their own future." The armor suddenly constricted around Tavis, its systems alerting him to an immense energy buildup. The council chamber on the hub was becoming supercharged with radiation typical of progenitor. "Manifestation. They're revealing themselves," he warned. Around the 7 eldest council members, the air itself seemed to tear. Their physical forms dissolved as massive energy constructs emerged, ancient consciousnesses finally exposed. "You have no conception of what you threaten," boomed a collective voice that caused communication systems throughout the hub to fail. "We guided evolution itself. Without us, chaos will reign." The armor's primary weapon system, dormant until now, activated autonomously. Emerald energy cascaded down Tavis's arms as the Viridian shell prepared for its ultimate purpose. "What we threaten," Tavis replied, "is your control, not civilization itself." The confrontation at the Coalition hub lasted 27 hours by standard galactic time. When it ended, nothing in the known universe would remain the same. As the progenitors manifested fully, shedding their corporeal disguises for their true forms of swirling energy and fractured light, the Coalition's carefully maintained order collapsed. Some species fled in terror, while others stood transfixed by beings they had worshipped as semi-divine for millennia. Tavis, the armor now fully integrated with his consciousness, became the focal point of the conflict. The Viridian shell had been designed for this exact purpose, not merely to expose the progenitors, but to contain them. "They're trying to escape into subspace," warned Arxus, as the energy beings began to phase between dimensions. "If they succeed, they'll return with vengeance beyond imagination," Tavis nodded. "Not this time." The armor's capabilities evolved with each passing moment, adapting to counter the progenitors' increasingly desperate attacks. When they attempted to possess Coalition soldiers, the armor projected a defensive field that severed their control. When they tried to destroy the hub itself, Tavis somehow intercepted the energy and redirected it harmlessly into space. Coalition species that had looked down on humanity for generations now watched in awe as a single human, empowered by forbidden technology, stood against beings that had manipulated evolution itself. "Why do you resist?" the progenitors demanded, their collective voice shaking the very structure of the hub. "We gave your species purpose. Without us, you are nothing." "You gave us a cage," Tavis replied, the armor amplifying his words across all channels. "However comfortable, a cage remains a cage." The final confrontation came when the progenitors, realizing they could not escape, attempted to merge their consciousnesses into a singular entity of unprecedented power. As their energies combined, Tavis felt the armor driving him forward, urging him toward what could only be described as a miniature sun of pure consciousness. "What are you doing?" screamed Nixisval, the Kandarian scientist. "The containment protocol requires distance." But Tavis understood what the armor intended. The Kandarians had designed the Viridian shell not just as a weapon, but as a bridge. The final step required direct contact, a merging of the wearer's consciousness with the progenitors themselves. "Trust me," he whispered, though whether to the Kandarians or himself he wasn't certain. As he stepped into the blinding light of the combined progenitor consciousness, time itself seemed to stop. Within that suspended moment, Tavis experienced every memory, every thought of both the ancient beings and the countless civilizations they had manipulated through the eons. He saw their origins, not as malevolent overlords, but as frightened survivors of their own evolutionary leap who had sought to guide other species down safer paths. He felt their loneliness, their growing detachment from physical existence, and their eventual corruption as power distorted their once noble intentions. Judgment unnecessary, understanding sufficient. The armor's assessment flowed through his mind as Tivus made his decision. The Kandarians had sought vengeance, the complete destruction of the progenitors, but humanity's greatest strength had always been empathy, even for those who had wronged them. Not destruction, Tivus declared. Transformation, using the armor's capabilities in ways its creators had never imagined. Tivus restructured the progenitors' energy patterns. Rather than containing or destroying them, he redistributed their consciousness equally among all sentient species in the coalition, including humanity. The result was instantaneous and irrevocable. Every being connected to the coalition network received a fragment of progenitor knowledge and ability, not enough to overwhelm their individuality, but sufficient to elevate their understanding of the universe and each other. When Tivus emerged, from the light, the armor had changed. No longer obsidian and emerald, it now shimmered with all the colors of the spectrum, transformed just as he had been transformed. "What have you done?" demanded Arxus, torn between awe and outrage. "This was not our plan." "Your plan was born of justified anger," Tivus replied gently. "Mine is born of hope. The progenitors no longer exist as separate entities. They've become part of us all. Their knowledge is our knowledge. Their power is our power, equally shared." Across the galaxy, species that had existed in rigid hierarchy for millennia suddenly found themselves understanding each other in ways previously impossible. Ancient rivalries dissolved as shared consciousness bridged gaps evolution had created. In the council chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds experienced the first moments of a truly unified galactic consciousness, one where no species dominated another, where knowledge flowed freely, and where even the youngest races, like humanity, contributed equally to the whole. "You've destroyed thousands of years of order," protested Zelthros, his form now merely physical rather than subtly enhanced by progenitor energy. "I've created the possibility of something better," Tivus countered. "A galaxy where advancement comes through cooperation rather than control." As the Kandarian warriors stood down, their vengeance transformed into unexpected redemption. Tivus felt the armor reconfiguring one final time. It had served its purpose, not as its creators had intended, but perhaps in a way that honored their original desire for truth. The plates retracted, revealing Tivus unchanged externally, but fundamentally transformed within. The geometric patterns remained embedded in his skin, no longer alien technology, but a reminder of how a single human decision had reshaped galactic history. "Where will you go now?" asked Nixis Val, as the coalition representatives began the monumental task of rebuilding their society without progenitor guidance. Tivus looked toward the viewports, beyond which stars shimmered with new possibility. "Home first. Earth deserves to know what happened. After that," he smiled, "after that we all have a universe to rediscover, together this time." The human who wore alien battle armor had indeed brought the universe's vengeance upon himself. But in doing so, he had transformed vengeance into something far more powerful, understanding. And in that transformation lay the greatest victory of all.